Morning Walter, this is just a bit of a walkthrough handover video on the systems and what's in the van. So if we just run through firstly the front cover, how we put it on, so you can see there's some bungee cords down the door, on the wing mirror, and then down the front, and that actually clips in just inside the wheel arch here, and then the bottom one there's a hole underneath here, over there, that clips in, and the same on the other side that holds on the front cover, and then that stops all the rain and weather and that just getting into the engine compartment. Now we're on the inside, and just to go through the control panel and how that functions, it's fairly straightforward. Just got a bit of a torch going on here. When you come into the van, the only thing you really need to push is that first one, which is your power on button. So when you turn that on, you'll get a green light come on, and then that'll put all the 12-volt system live on the van. Underneath it, the second one is the awning light outside, which I showed you there, and then the one underneath that is the water pump. So once you've filled up the water tank, you then push that one, and then that would turn the water pump on, and you can hear it gurgling away. Now another thing we need to do as well, when we first turn the power on, there is a thermal protection for the boiler that stops it from freezing and then expanding. So if we look at the galley, we've got the cupboard over there, we just open that, and then down on the bottom we've got a shelf that lifts up, and when we lift that shelf up, let's try and get a bit of video going on there. Just underneath you can see there's the heater pipe, and then when we lift the heater pipe up, we've got this black box over here, down there, and then there's a button on the top of it. Let me try and get a better position of that. So you can see the red button on the top of it. That's actually the valve that lets the water out of the boiler. So all what you do is you pull up on that valve, and you heard it click, and then that sets it in place and stops all the water being pumped out of the van. So if you turn the main power back off, I'll just go through that, that valve will automatically disconnect. I don't know if you heard the click there, and then drop back down again and empty all the water out, or just allow water to flow out of the boiler. So if we look there, if I try and pull the valve up, it won't stay up. So the power has to be on for that valve to stay up and reset. And a good way to know if you've got it done right is when you turn the water pump on and you've got water coming out the bottom of the van, that valve hasn't been reset. Hopefully that makes sense. So coming back to the control panel, so on the other side, as you said, we've got our battery in the camper van. The other one is the battery in the front cab to start the engine, and then that one is your water tank level inside the tank. And then as we move across here, you've got some lights lit up. I'll turn the power back on again so you can see them all come up there. The one I'm pointing to here is when the water tank gets low, that one will flash, and then the one next to it is when the waste tank gets to about 75%, that one will flash. So that gives you a warning on your waste tank. And then underneath here is when you plug into shore power, you'll get that green light come on. Again, we've got the battery monitor system, which is much more accurate than this system. So as we look on the top, you'll see there that says main, which is the main battery voltage in the camper van, so the leisure battery. When we push it down one, you see it says aux, so that's the battery in the van, tells you the voltage in the battery in the van. And then when we go down again, that's now going to tell you how many amps the solar panels putting in, or how many amps you're taking out of the van if you're using any of the accessories, TV, etc. in the van. And then you've got a little bar graph here as well, which will drop down as you start using the power out of the van. So it gives you a good visual indication. You've got it also in watts, and then when you go down again, that last screen will tell you how many amp hours you've got left in the battery. So it's like a countdown clock. And then a percentage again. Oh, sorry, I think I got that wrong. That one will tell you how many or how long you've got in the battery. As we go back up, that's how many amps are being taken out. So if I turn the water pump on, or with the solar panel on now, obviously we're drawing no power. But the manual for this is actually in the van. Like I said to you, all the manuals are in here. So it's quite a thick manual, a lot to digest, but the basic function is your leisure battery voltage, your starter battery voltage, and your solar panel power in and out. Then as we look at the TV, control, it's fairly simple again. So we've got the 3 switches down the side here. You've got on and off for the TV, the first one, so that leaves it either on standby or turns the power off, so it just stops it running down if you're not actually using the TV. The next one is for the USB, which then lights up the USB plug, so you can use that. And again, if you leave that on, it's just going to drain power unnecessarily. And then the last one here is the TV lift over here that raises up and down. As we said, it takes a little while. You just push and hold it until the TV comes all the way up, and it'll stop on its own. And then you're ready to go. You just make sure your power's on, and then when you turn it down again, you're the one that controls it on the way down. So beware that once the top becomes flush with the countertop, if you need to stop pushing the button. If you keep pushing the button, it'll carry on winding this cover down, and it could get jammed in the hole that's been cut out, which is what's happened there. So just be aware when you go down. Once it gets flush with the top, that's it, it's down. So now we're on the double over the front, just going through some of the switch panels we got over here. So again, you've got 2 buttons over there. One's marked USB, which is to power that and turn that on. And then the next one is that heater function that I was telling you about that gives it the half-an-hour run. So if you push that button, that'll automatically start the heater, and it'll run for a half-an-hour and then turn itself back off again. So in the mornings, it'll keep warm up the van before you get up if it's really cold. Okay, the heater controls, again, the manual's in the back, and I do highly suggest you go through and give it a read, but I'll give you a basic rundown of how it works. So you start off with the power button, you push that on, and then that illuminates the screen, and then you'll see in the top here you've got various different functions. So the first one is a little heating sign. Oh, so that times out. The second one is a fan. Then you've got some programming functions, some timer functions, and some preset points. But if you just wanted to start the heater, you would push the power button and then go to the OK. That will ask you then how long you want it to run for. You push OK again. That will ask you the temperature you want it set to, which is 40 high. So that's you can adjust that. I've just pushed loads of buttons there. You can adjust that in the set point, which I'll set to about 21, and then you'd push OK again, and that would start the heater, and you would get this little heater symbol in there showing that tells you the heater is actually running, and then it'll go through its startup sequence, and it'll sound a bit like a jet engine as it starts running, and then once it kicks on, it's all automatic. But again, there's loads of information on these sort of heater systems online if you wanted further information, but I would suggest reading the manual. So the next thing is just a quick system on the fridge locking mechanisms over here, which a lot of people, especially when you're new to it, don't tend to understand that and break this whole locking system. So just to talk you through there now, I'll talk you through that now. So if you have a look, you'll see the fridge is actually on a vent lock position. So when it's not in use and that, it's good to leave it open, and then that stops you know, any mold or anything growing in the fridge. And if I pull on the doors, you can see that they are locked in that position, so you can drive as well in that position, and when you pick up the van it'll be in that position. So to open the fridge, you'll see it's a slider bar that slides across, that's got a little lock symbol on both the fridge and the freezer. So what you do is you click it over, and then that shows you the unlock symbol, and then that gives you a opening and closing of the fridge and freezer door. So just to show you the mechanism, that's it over there. So when you go to the lock position, you can see it slides that sort of fork over, and there's two slots in that fork. So you can see one's closed locked and one's open locked, and then that actually locates in a bar on the actual fridge. So when you want to lock it in the closed position, obviously just close the fridge, so you see the seal closes, come back to the lock, slide it over, and then now that's locked in the closed position, and the fridge would be working in this scenario. So if you don't lock the door when you're driving, the fridge sometimes will tend to slide open and closed, so just be aware of that. This top one has been replaced because unfortunately my wife broke it, so it is a little bit stiffer than the bottom one being new. So you just have to kind of almost put your thumb on it, and when you push it, whereas the bottom one, it'll move over relatively easily, but that one's quite stiff because it's a newer mechanism, and you've got to just push your thumb on it to open and close it, and that works in the same principle. You can see the little hook there, and it's got the same latch system underneath there. If it does jam up, there's a little screw underneath here that you take off, and then you can slide out this plate. It sort of clips in, reset the finger, and then put it all back together, and then that'll enable it to work again. So just to be aware that because it is stiffer, sometimes if you just try and slide it with your thumb like that, and it's gripping the door, it can cause a bit of an issue. So that's unlock, open, and then when you put it on the vent, what I tend to do is put it on the lock position, you feel it stop, and then just open it and slide it halfway through, and then that puts you back on the vent position. Okay, so just to run through the gas and water system. So with the water, obviously you got your fill cap over there. The key for the door opens up the fill cap, that turns the lock, and then that clips off half a clip, hose in there, and you can fill it up there. The electric, if you plug in on the external power, it goes in under there, and there's a release just in there when you want to take it, unplug it. So you clip it in, and then just you push on that to release the actual electric short cable. And then down the bottom here is where you would fill up with the LPG. So that's just a half a turn, comes off, and then you would clip in the filling up the LPG in there. So with the tank itself, there's a manual valve that we open and close just underneath where the tank is actually situated. So as we come under the vehicle, you can see there's this little black box and you take this cover off, and then the valve to open and close it is underneath there. So there's a little lever underneath here, you just flick that forward, pull it forward, and then it'll slide out, and then show you your tank. Let me try and get in here. Wait away. Oh, there we go, sorry. Your valve is down the bottom here, so this over here turns the gas on and off. That's your level gauge, so you can see at the moment it's full. When it gets all the way down to the empty mark around the other side, you can still go quite a long time before it actually truly runs out of gas. So it's just a rough gauge on when the cylinder is full. But if we just, when you're ready to go camping or you finish camping, again, I tend to not drive with the gas open, so I would open and close this. So you just open the valve, turn it all the way till it stops, and then a half a turn back, and then your gas is open now and flowing into the van. And then replace the cover. So with the cover, we'll see there's these two tabs over here, and they just slot up into the housing that we got. So you can see on the edge of the housing, you can feel the edge of the cover. It's probably going to be quite difficult doing it one-handed, but you'll feel it locate in the top. It is much easier with two hands. So you'll feel it locate in the top. There's a little catch bolt underneath here, and then you just slide that back on, and then that's the cover back in and locked down. Oh, I think I with my videoing functionality. So if you turned it to the battery, that would turn the green battery on. And what you just need to be aware that you can actually just run it on battery without the engine running. We have had it configured like that, but you will run your batteries down pretty quick because it draws quite a lot of power. So if we go back to our voltmeter, you can see we're drawing 12.8 amps. So that doesn't take long to kill the battery. So just be careful of putting it on the battery function without the engine running. Whereas, as I say, if you go back to the auto function, that will then choose whichever is most suited to the system, and then turn off. It's obviously a bit cooler here this morning. I've done this first thing in the morning, so we haven't gone straight onto the gas because it's saying that the temperature in the fridge is what's required. So it is an automatic fridge. It'll turn itself off and on as required. Sometimes you find the lip in the freezer compartment, you get a ice forming around here. Doesn't happen very often. We haven't found it that much, but it does have a heater function over here that actually has a little heating element that'll just defrost this surround. But to be honest, we've never really used it. It's one of those rare things. All right, so if we just go through purging the gas, the next thing, just to show you how to do that. So the best thing I do is light the cooker. That's normally the easiest way to do it. And with the cookers, they've got the control knob, and then it's got a little arrow showing you which one is the desired hob that you want to burn. And then all what you do is you push the button down and then turn it, and then that allows the gas to flow through. Now I highly suggest you get one of those clickers to do this. I can't find ours. We do have one, so I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. Let's just, oh, pop it up. Oh, that's not going to work. It's just one of these jobs where I need two hands to do it. Okay, let's see, that'll work. So we push the button down, and then I'm going to light the lighter, and then that'll turn the gas on. So obviously with a clicker, you're not running the risk of burning your fingers. So this will take a little while to purge through. And then you can see now once it's purged through, the gas is on, and then you've got to hold it down for a while. Sometimes it goes quicker than others depending again on the ambient temperature, but they have got a fail safe in them that'll turn the gas off if the temperature is not correct. So you can see now I've let go the button and the flame's staying on, and then when you turn it off, sometimes you hear a click. I don't know if you heard that click, but that's the thermocouple that's gone off, and it won't let the gas actually flow through again until you actually push down on the button. So you've got to push it in and then turn it to turn the gas flow back on again and light it. So the next one is the hot water cylinder. So I'll just show you the control there. So this does the hot water, which is the top two, and then also the gas heating, which is the bottom two. Like I said to you, we don't ever use the gas heating in the system because of the diesel heater, which is far more efficient. So we just use the hot water. And there's a little slide bar up here, and you can see the first one is 40 degrees, the second one is 60 degrees. But we've always found that it gets so hot on the 40 degrees, we've never turned it up to the 60 degrees. And all what you do is you turn it up one, a light will come on, it'll light. You always want to make sure there's water in there, otherwise you could damage the hot water cylinder. And if it doesn't light, or it fails, it's got a warning light or red light that comes on, if I remember right, on there, but the manuals for it are all on there. So I'll just turn it on. So you can see you get your two lights. When it's warm, the orange light goes out, and when it's and then you'll just be left with a green light. And when you turn it back off again, you can see the lights sort of fade out. To turn the oven off, you don't need a clicker for that. This one's got an automatic on and off. So there's a lighter in there. I've actually just turned the gas off, so it probably won't light. But you just push it down, and you can hear it clicking away, and that'll automatically light it when the gas is on. And then you just turn the dial once it's light to your desired heat, or the grill. The trays for the oven are down underneath this sink, down there, over there. So we just tend to store them in here because it does rattle and roll quite a lot when you're out and about, so it just saves on the noise. Another quick thing to note, these door handles, they're really nice and pretty, but there's a tendency sometimes that you want to pull them from the edge, and you've got to be quite careful because they've got a little hinge in the middle here, and if you do pull them from the edge, it'll tend to snap the hinges off. So you always want to open it from the center, like that. So again, there's another, so you can see the little sort of arrow. Grab it from the center and open it like that. As I say, if you pull from these sides, you will tend to snap them off. Again, you'll see in the back there is some spares for these because we have broken a few, so we found a place that made some spares to sort of remake them if you ever do. And it's a fairly simple process. You just undo the two screws over there, the whole handle mechanism will slide out, and then behind it, you can see a little plate there. There's some screws, and that then lets you take it apart. So most of the handles in the front are those pull ones to be wary of, so just remember that. But down the back, the ones with the cupboards, they're the push ones, just push in and out, fairly straightforward and simple. Again, over there, fairly straightforward and simple. And then and the bathroom door, again, just push and open, fairly simple. So I've put some water in the tank now, so I'll just show you that. I push the bottom one, and then you can see it lights up. It's not the most accurate of gauges. It kind of works in blocks, really. So you get 2, 2, 2, and 2 come on, but it's a good indication. When you sort of get to these middle two, that's kind of when you want to start thinking about, you know, getting some more water, or you've probably got about, I don't know, 25-50 liters of water, something like that, left in there. So when you first get into the van after it's been shut down and the whole system's empty, we want to purge the air out of the lines for the water system. So we just turn the water pump on, and you can hear it start running. And then what I do is start here in the galley. I leave the taps open, or this tap open. I've closed the others until we start getting some water coming through. I then turn it over to the hot side, because that's going to take the longer time to purge, because the hot water cylinder, I think, holds about 10 liters of water. So just let that run through and purge, and then once you get a good flow of water coming through, we'll then shut it down. So again, just to show you that reset, if you don't open that, you'll get water pouring coming out down the bottom of the van, and that's to stop it from freezing. So if if you find you're getting that, you know you haven't reset that thermal dropout for the hot water tank. So while we're waiting for the water to purge, I'm just coming back to the fridge. So I've turned the gas off now. It takes quite a while to empty the gas out of the line, but now the gas has run out of the whole system. You can see we've got a flashing light showing there. So when you see that flashing light, that means there's no gas, and you need to open the gas back up again and purge it through like I showed you on the hob. And then you would turn that to the off position and leave it there for a couple of seconds, and then go back to either the gas, and you can see it's gone solid, so it's restarted its starting sequence, but it'll start tripping again when it realizes it hasn't detected a flame. So just remember that if you are in the auto position and you get that flashing light come up, to reset the fridge to start its start sequence again, you've got to go all the way back to the off, leave it there for a couple of seconds, and then select either the gas or go back to auto, and it'll go back to trying to start, or going through which is the best system that it wants to use to enable the fridge to work. So you can see, coming back to the water now, we're starting to get a good flow of water coming through. So the hot water tank is now probably filled. We just go back to the cold, and again that's flowing nice and strong, so we can turn that off. We'll go into the bathroom, and again in the bathroom tap, just do the same. Lift it up, let the air out of the system so that the water starts flowing through, and then do that to the hot water as well. And if you don't purge the taps when you first put water in, the pump will actually cycle, because it's going to just try and compress the water, the air, sorry, and it'll turn itself on and off. So I'll just put the phone back here where the water pump is, and you'll hear the pump cycle. So you can hear that low drum, that's the pump running, and the tap open, tap closed, pump goes off. So it's all automatic. And then I would do the same with the shower. Obviously you've got the shower tap over there, both hot and cold. All of them are on mixer taps, hot and cold. So just purge the water out of that. And then the toilet, when you come to flush the toilet, that also uses water from the actual main tank. And there's a button on the back here, and you would just push that button, and then that would pour water out through there for your flush. So there'll be a little bit of air in there when you first start the system. You just push it to purge the air out, and then it'll just run fresh water through there. So you do whatever you do in the toilet. And down the side we've got the valve that opens and then lets everything go down into the bottom tank. So you open the valve, and you can see now the throat of the toilet's open, so whatever will fall down into the tank. Now I've closed it, and now I've opened it, and yeah, sort of do your business. And then you close it all the way. You can hear there was a fan running, which I was telling you about, that SOG system. So every time you open the valve, you can hear the fan, and that then draws air down into the toilet and expels it out through the back of the van. And then when you want to come to empty the toilet, you just unlock it, like with all the locks on the van. There's a little squeeze button, you push it, that opens the door. And then just underneath the toilet, you've got a lock handle over there that keeps the cassette locked into the position. So you just lift up that handle, and then the toilet will slide out. And then as it slides out, you'll see there's this air pipe, which is the vent drain. You disconnect that, and then there's a little cover in the little gap there, over there. You slot that in there to stop anything splashing on you, and then take out the toilet, and you'd go and empty it. So to empty it, you'd lift up the snout. You've got the open and close valve on it over there, so unscrew that like that, and then you can pour out the contents. And then down the bottom here is an air release valve, so if it's really full and you've got it upside down, you push that air release valve to stop it glugging, and that helps you just with the splashback. And you'll get to learn all about the splashback when you're emptying it. just as a bit of a tip with the toilet, when you don't use it for a while, the seals do tend to dry out. So just a way to prolong the seals, I'll take this slider. You can see it just slides back like that, and then that gives you the throat of the toilet. And then well, it depends on how often you use it or not, but if you haven't used it for a while, you just want to lubricate that seal up. And I just tend to use some olive oil, and what I'll do is just pour some in there. You don't need a lot, and then use a glove, and then just go all the way around the seal. So I just noticed that it wasn't dry hard, but it was starting to get a bit stiff on the toilet when you open and close it. So that's why I'm just doing this for you quick, so it'll be all ready to go. And then in the groove here, you can see there's like a double seal. Get in and out there as well, with the oil, sort of work it all the way around, so it's nice and lubed. And then you can open the throat manually with this over here. So you just turn that, and then you can see that opens it, and then just lubricate the bottom of the seal as well. So again, get a bit of oil, olive oil from the throat, and just go all the way around it. So I'm just picking up or scooping up some of the oil from there. So the white that you're seeing is actually just calcium that's built up, and you can see even down in the toilet you get a bit of calcium. So this is from not using chemicals all the time. Obviously with the pee, there's a lot of calcium in there, so that's why I'm saying to you every now and then it is wise just to use a bit of calcium in there to just descale it, or a bit of descaler even every now and then. We use vinegar sometimes, or descaler, depending what we can get our hands on. All right, and then once you've done that, you just close that again, and you'll feel that the whole seal and the mechanism opening and closing will become a lot easier to do. And then you just slide the cover back on, and she's ready to go back in. So when you put the cassette back into the toilet, it's just the reverse of taking it out. Anything you want to make sure is that you get it in nice and straight. Don't try and put it in at weird angles, because it'll only go in one way. So nice and straight. You'll feel it sort of sit on the rails that it locates on. Before you push it all the way home, remember to connect these two back up again. If you don't, you can get pressure building up in the toilet. So you just pull that cap off. I'll put it back in over there. The vent tube just slots in back on like that, and then all the way home, and you'll hear it click where that handle locates, and then shut the door and lock her up, and you're good to go. So again, just coming back to the toilet, when I leave it in a store sort of condition, I like to leave the big valve open, and that just stops everything sticking together with those rubber bits. So all what I do is just open it, and as long as there's no pressure on the seal like that, you know, that'll stop the seals sticking together and everything binding together. You can get spare seals for these things, and even a new cassette if you wanted to. They do sell like a refresh kit for them, which is something we've sort of done over the years, and it gives you a new seat and a new cassette and stuff like that, which everything's nice and new then. And then you hear the fan running, and until you actually turn off the mains power, that fan will stay running. So bear that in mind, that when you store in the van, you want to turn off the mains power, otherwise that fan will stay running all the time. So again, when we're talking about storing the van when you're not going to use it for a while, you want to drain all the water and everything out of the van, otherwise it just goes moldy and smells and stuff like that. So to do that, you just turn your main power off, and that's going to disengage the thermal cutout, start draining the boiler, and then I would open all the taps as well to drain them all out, and then I'll go around and show you underneath the van where the actual main drain plug is to drain the water out of the tank as well. So that's turned that off, and now the water's running out the van. And I just open up the taps, both in the kitchen and the bathroom, leave all the taps open, and the same in the shower, and then we'll go and do underneath the van. So again, when we come around to the water fill gas side of the van, the drain cap is underneath this side, and you see where the running light is. If I just step back a bit, so as we're looking at the back of the van, where that running light is, if we go underneath there, try and do this with 2 hands, there's a green cap. Oh, there it is. So you can see there's a green cap. This insulated box is just for the fuel pump for the diesel heater. So that sort of stops the noise and or helps with the noise, because it does make a clicking noise when it's running. Sounds like a clock ticking. Some people sort of complain about that, but yeah. So that's your water dump. If I move that out the way and unscrew that, you'll see you start getting all the water coming out of it. And then as the last thing that I like to do once I've dumped the water out of the tank is just to run the water pump a little bit, just to try and push out any of the last bits and bobs out of it. So we just turn it on there, turn the water pump on, and just let that run for a few seconds to purge things through. So I guess the last thing is, obviously before you drive off, you just want to do a couple of basic checks just to make sure that nothing's going to open or come loose or anything like that. Obviously the big ones is the cupboards. Make sure they're all clipped in, pushed down, and you hear them all positively latch in. The glass lids on the cooker and basin, we obviously want to put those away and down, because otherwise you could end up with them breaking. The fridge door, like we said, is on the lock position over there, closed or vent depending on what you're doing. In the bathroom, again, we've got slidey cupboards on here, and they're on velcros, so just give them a little bit of a squeeze, and the same with the one underneath here. There's some velcros in on there, so just put it on there. And then the shower, the way that works is we're a big sliding plastic door, and there's a retaining clip over here. And then also what we have done is we've got a wine cork that we put down the bottom here, which also stops the whole thing from moving. So when you using the van, obviously to have a shower, you would just take out that cork, unclip that, and then the shower slides around, and then you're inside there having a shower. So when you come to go again, just make sure that that's all the way back, clip in there, and then the cork, you'll see there's a squished end, and just in the gap down there, just push that back in, and then that keeps the shower door nice and secure. All right.